YouTube Bazik going. The Goat House is back, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are Super Bowl 55 champions. I'm here to give you my takeaways. Quick recap. The last recap of the year, did so many of these during the season, but now we're in off-season mode. We already got a bunch of off-season content on the channel, and an insane amount more to come here, covering free agency, trades, the draft, everything. We're breaking it all down on Twitter as it happens as well, so you're going to want to follow that Twitter. Check out that Sided app. You can win Amazon gift cards by talking football. We have a page on there with polls, so check it out. Link in the description, comments for anything that you need. Please subscribe to the channel. Full NFL coverage more than anybody. We got you covered. We got a lot planned, so we'll have more news about that in the future. You keep up to date on that Twitter. But yeah, to the game, 31-9. Was not expecting it to be that much of a dominant performance, a beatdown, really. Not a single touchdown for the Chiefs, which is absolutely mind-blowing. You know, I talked about leading up to this game, how bad this Chiefs offensive line was on paper. And I knew the possibility that, there was a possibility it could play pretty damn bad. But I didn't think it was going to be this bad. I know the Buccaneers maybe have the best front seven in football, but it was really rough. But Buccaneers did it. I mean, you see the positives for the Bucs. It's pretty much everything. That's why I put that at the end. It's pretty much everything. So I just wanted to put some key things in there. But I mean, Todd Bowles, what they threw at the Chiefs offensive line too. They just, there's one thing preparing. You don't. Both tackles are guards, first off. I think that was the worst part. Mike Remmer's playing guard this year. Wiley playing guard. They're both of them playing tackle in this game. And they just threw so much at them that wasn't really on film. They were moving JPP inside, rushing them from the inside. They moved Vita Vea outside. I mean, it's just wild what they're able to do. And they already had to worry about, where they were coming from in their original spots. Shaq Barrett had a day at the edge. Ridiculous. They probably expected more blitzing too. They did a good job blitzing the secondary here and there, but it just was so unexpected. And on top of that, they were just more physical and the better players, that front seven, that actual defensive line. But Todd Bowles should, he's probably not going to get enough credit for it. He's getting a lot of credit, but probably not going to get enough here on that defensive game. And we talked about that too. Last time they played the Chiefs, they ran a lot of press man with no safety help, and it was and that's not really what they normally run. So, and that's exactly what you don't run against the Chiefs. So it was almost are they they're not? We know they're not this stupid. They for some reason it felt like they knew they were going to play the Chiefs in this game. That's what it felt like, and they didn't want to show everything. We know teams do that. The Chiefs didn't show everything offensively during the year. They were getting fancy, So the Buccaneers, and then they came out with. Like we talked about in the front seven, how they rush the passer, the stunts, how they move guys around. But then how about the secondary? They had somebody over the top of Tyreek Hill at pretty much all times. And they were, everyone was talking about Travis Kelce. His post-game interview was probably the best covering this, but he basically said they made his dink and dunk, and you're not going to come back in games dinking and dunking. You can, if you have a lead, you can do it, but obviously it got out of hand. They did not have a lead, so that was ideal. I got to give credit to Sean Murphy-Bunting. I think he had most snaps on Tyreek Hill, and he was doing an excellent job. He had himself a playoff and Super Bowl. Let me tell you, the kid from Central Michigan is a stud. You can play inside and out. You covered Tyreek Hill. I know there was some help over the top, but I mean, that whole secondary, I saw on Twitter, they built that secondary on day 2 of the draft. Murphy, Bunting, Antoine Winfield, those are a couple guys I was very high on in the draft. Jamel Dean was a day 2 pick. Mike Edwards was a day 2 pick. It goes on there, and they found some studs. They did their homework and evaluated. I'm never a big fan of taking, corners really early, because I think, the takeaway from this game is, quarterback's not the only one that's very important. Talk about offense line and actual pass rush. That's why I think, you value pass rush high. Secondary is very important, but if you can hit on day 2 like that and find some studs that you can work with, man, that's big time. So, yeah, you got to give credit to the Buccaneers there, what they did. They spent their money and higher picks on, front seven, and it's pass rush, not even from the edge. It's not even where they spent their money, Shaq Barrett on the franchise tag, and they went out and got Jason Pierre-Paul, and they re-signed him last year. They keeping Levante David around and spending the high draft pick on Devin White, who gets pressure on blitz and can cover, and Vita Vea on the inside, spending money on Ndamukong Suh. I mean, that they did it right. They did it right, in my opinion. It's the correct way to do it. It's just a ridiculous defense. A few years ago, it was just one of the worst in football, and just where they got it to. Just a complete, not only defense, but just a complete team. Where's the hole on that team? There really isn't. There really isn't at all. Some people thought running back going this year, but Leonard Fournette, Ronald Jones, I mean, they complement each other so well, too. Ronald Jones got that burst. Leonard Fournette's kind of got that vision, that, patience, and that, physicality, that power. Playoff Lenny showed up. How about Super Bowl Gronk showing up at the right time? He looked faster, like he was, saving it for this moment. So we consider and credit all the players. I think the ones that, stood out the most are Devin White, Levante David. I talked about those guys are the key pieces of this defense. Those guys are the X factors, the best inside linebacker duo in football. And, man, were they good. They were so good in coverage. They were so good, at everything. And they usually blitz them a little more, but they didn't really need to. And they were just so dominant. Devin White we already knew Levante David was debatably the best linebacker in football. We see his versatility. He was great when he was running in a 4-3 outside linebacker spot, now playing 3-4 inside, dominant. Devin White, and we knew he was a special player coming out of LSU. Phenomenal tape, phenomenal prospect, but this guy might already be an elite football player. It's ridiculous what he does. So, the way they built this team, how dominant they were, and they put him in the right position to succeed here. Offensive line, they stepped up. Guys like Donovan Smith had some struggles here and there in the past, but he had a great year. He had a great game, adding Tristan Wirfs. That ended up being a great pick as expected. Even Alex Cappa went down, the next guy up, and Ryan Jensen being one of the best centers in football, Ali Marpet, one of the better guards. This is a dominant team throughout. Tom Brady took care of the ball. He made the big throws when he needed to. Got the ball out really quick when he needed to. So I guess nothing surprising there, but I almost thought, maybe you would turn the ball over. It's a big time game there. You see Tyrann Mathieu and him going at it, and I think Matthew kind of started that, and you don't trash talk Tom Brady, especially in the Super Bowl. So lesson learned there, maybe. The Chiefs, I thought, I put somebody in the positive. I thought Damian Wilson was a stud. That goal line stand, he made back-to-back ridiculous plays. People wondering why Ronald Jones didn't, jump the, dive or jump over to the pot to the goal line, and it's because he had one guy to beat and he was going full speed ahead, and I think Ronald Jones did the right thing. Damian Wilson just made a ridiculous play before that as well, so I thought he stood out a couple more times as well. Had to point Patrick Mahomes. You won't really notice it, especially based off the stats box score, but I thought Patrick Mahomes played. You'll never know. You never realize unless you watch, the game and you understand. But I thought he played a pretty good game. Really, some of the throws he was making under pressure, his receivers let him down. Offensive line obviously let him down, but it really wasn't a surprise given who was out there. But the receivers really let him down. It's odd because, you think that Mahomes has all these weapons, and he's got weapons, but, it was a weak spot in this game, and it shows they need to get better there because, Tyreek Hill was pretty much doubled. They kind of took him away. He dropped what would have been a touchdown as well. But and Travis Kelce did a good job covering him. He had a bad drop, maybe two as well. But other than that, the other guys just couldn't. They just couldn't do it. They couldn't get separation. Some of the routes were really bad. There was some drops in there. I know Watkins has been out. Maybe he's still hurt, but it was pretty bad, and Watkins and Demarcus Robinson are going to be free agents as well. So receiver is a big need, surprisingly. So Mahomes was just let down by his offensive line, his weapons. Clyde Edwards-Helaire actually ran the ball pretty well. If they were still in the game, I actually think he would have been a key factor. It's tough to run against the Bucs defense too, so he was looking pretty good. So that was unfortunate. They couldn't stay in the game really. I think maybe the coaching staff let down Mahomes too, let down the team as well because there was just no adjustments. And it's tough because you're the Chiefs. You're the favorites for a reason. You're the defending champs. You're the best team, high-powered offense in football. Until now, I guess the best team's the Buccaneers, but and so that's why it's tough. You don't really want to change your game. You got to play your game because if you go against your game and you lose, it's going to be bad. You want to play you want to play the game. You want to have the game plan that got you here. So that's why it's tough to really change what you're doing. And the Buccaneers were able to adjust based on last time, and they've grown since then. But there was really no adjustments. They knew what they were doing. They were forcing them to dink and dunk. And I think the Niners last year were doing a great job too, and the cover 3 was a problem for them, against the Niners. But they drew up some really good plays, some flood plays, flood routes, mainly with Tyreek Hill and Sammy Watkins. That's how you beat the cover 3. So they drew that up, no problem. I guess this was a tougher task. See how dominant the Niners defense was last year. The Buccaneers literally looked better, better game plan, more complete, and they literally got more dominant at every step of the way. So pretty ridiculous. So I guess there was no, and Kelsey's interview was probably the best because he was actually, sometimes guys are like, yeah, they just outplayed us or whatever. I think he went into, he was exactly right, obviously, and he went into detail there. They made him dink and dunk, and it just felt like whatever they tried to do, the Buccaneers just had an answer. So it's exactly what happened. I just still can't believe the Chiefs didn't score. Again, there was a lot of people letting them down. I mean, the discipline wasn't there too. Stupid Chris Jones. Slapping a guy in the face wasn't a whole lot, but you're going to call that if you see it. Tyrann Mathieu just he's up a little bit, getting a little too crazy there, and then Brady came after him, and Antonio Brown beat him. So it's just too much. It's one thing to trash talk a little bit, but I was not expecting that. In the offsides and the field goal, I mean, there were at least 2 guys lined up offsides. Like, that is a stupid mistake. Like, how do you let that happen? I don't really agree with all the penalties, but I know a lot of people were complaining, but there was nothing like sketchy about it. The penalty on Breeland on Mike Evans I thought was bad. But can you explain it? Why the ref threw the flag? There's a difference when you can't explain it. He dove and kind of hit his foot. And Mike Evans does have pretty good length and range, so maybe he could have caught it. The ref's thinking. I thought it was uncatchable, but maybe. That was really the only. There was some other ones that were like, yeah, I probably wouldn't have called it, but live play, it's definitely on the person. It's different. It's different for each person, so they're definitely explainable. There was a pass interference they called when it definitely was illegal contact, which resulted, So I guess it was a flag, but it was kind of the wrong call. There wasn't really anything major. It did suck the life kind of out of the Chiefs, and I think that created them getting frustrated and yelling at each other, yelling at Tom Brady, so I don't know. I guess that didn't help, and if I guess those weren't called, maybe the game could have went a little differently, but at the end of the day, they weren't themselves, and the Buccaneers just outplayed them every phase. So take away those penalties, sure, the game's different. I think the Buccaneers were still deserving on this day, and they were dominant. And this team got better, literally got better. And we've seen teams do that. We've seen teams that win Super Bowls do that, but it's ridiculous. Shouldn't be that surprising because it's a fairly new team and a lot of young guys that are getting better every step of the way. Devin White, Winfield, Murphy Bunting, all these guys in secondary. And then we see Leonard Fournette play like the Leonard Fournette, that top pick, that LSU Leonard Fournette. So, how ridiculous was it that in the coaching staff too, how much better they got every single game. Even the start of the playoffs, Washington football team game, even since then, every step of the way, how much better they got. I think the second half of the Saints playoff game is where they really, that's where here they are. This is the team. So yeah, and we kind of saw that coming, that they would get better, like this, and that's why I had them in the Super Bowl. But they didn't really miss a second there to get better, and they had some sloppy football earlier in the year. Even mid-season, but literally, once they got out of that funk, every game within games, these guys are getting better. It's just ridiculous. So that's the crazy thing. It's really hard to, and we'll start making our predictions and things. I think last year I did a way too early top Super Bowl contenders, and we'll do that again. Maybe today. I'll get working on it soon. We'll see a lot we want to do, but the Buccaneers, it's really hard to repeat, but the Buccaneers, again, it was still fairly a new team. You kind of get better by default, developing that chemistry every step of the way. And it's just so many young players. Again, Winfield was a rookie. Devin White's getting better and better. Shaq Barrett's getting better. Vita Vea's getting better. Pretty much everybody in that secondary offensive line just came together, adding Tristan Wirfs and, being under Tom Brady's command. And So, I mean, this team is definitely, it's too early to talk about it, but definitely could go back to back, just because of that. So, I'm sure we'll see the Chiefs, back at elite play during the year. We'll see if they can make it back and win it. They'll have to touch up the offense line or the receiver unit. They got some free agent cornerbacks. I just wasn't expecting this dominant of a performance. Patrick Mahomes, I still think is the best player in all of football in general. Not really saying this year, even though he's fantastic this year. But yeah, in general, I still view him as the best player in football. You didn't have too much help in this game. The stats won't show how ridiculous he was. But anything else I want to touch on? Buccaneers, I just couldn't. Looking at the roster, I just couldn't find you can't find a hole in it, and it showed in this game. And I talked about it. It showed in this game that, quarterback, isn't really the most important. I mean, it is the most important position, but take a look at offensive line and not even edge rush, just pass rush in general and how you can get it and, how important those things are. They're right there with quarterback play. And then it'll be that deadly to have a complete roster on top of it, but that is extremely hard to do. So yeah, that's the name of the game. Go out and spend the money, the high picks. You can't overdraft guys just to draft in that position, but basically you have to value. Teams got to value offensive line and pass rush. Again, not just edge rush, pass rush more. So maybe teams learn from this a little bit here, and they'll approach the offseason a little differently how they should. So we'll see. Got a lot to come in the offseason here, a lot of trade rumors every single day. So the Super Bowl's over. I think some teams were kind of waiting for that. So some news should start to break. We'll have you covered right away on Twitter, and then we'll cover it here on the channel. And then we'll have our predictions, coverage, what teams should do. We'll have rebuilds for teams for this offseason. NFL draft coverage. We got you guys covered. Trying to keep you guys involved too. You guys will vote for a fan vote and mock draft. There's more fun things that we have planned. We'll have more updates on that. So you're going to want to follow our Twitter. You're going to want to subscribe to the channel. Smash that like button. Join us for everything. Be much appreciated. That is going to do it for the last recap of this season. Thanks everyone for the support all year. We're not done yet though. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.